Welcome, dear friends, those of you who search for the truth in the labyrinths of ancient history. Today we meet to embark on a profound intellectual journey concerning a major turning point in the course of Christian civilization, the position of the Crusades within the context of the early history of the East. These are questions that have long aroused suspicion and doubt in the hearts of historians and researchers, and they call for a new, unconventional look at what we think we know about that sensitive period. Could the period separating us from the emergence of what we know today as Islam be much longer than we imagine? And was the reaction of Christian Europe delayed, or did it arrive precisely on time? Let us uncover together these secrets buried in the folds of the centuries. The most pressing question that arises about the period of the Crusades has always been, what is the real position of these wars in the early history of the East, and why this timing specifically? Why did Christian Europe, which paid great attention to the Holy Land, wait about 3.5 or 4 full centuries to suddenly announce the existence of a new religion that had appeared in the East? This delay in declaring wars to recover Jerusalem and the holy places that fell into the hands of the invaders is astonishing and raises questions. Looking into the history of what is called the Crusades can lead us to the conclusion that European Christians did not actually seek to recover the Holy Lands until the advent of the 11th century AD. As many know, the First Crusade was in the year 1099 AD. If we reflect on the famous speech of Pope Urban II, which served as the spark that incited Christians to recover their holy places in the Levant, we find that this speech represents the first text, or the first documented reference, that speaks about the emergence of a new religion in a modern and contemporary manner. Here lies the key that links Christian history and the Eastern invasion. According to the official historical narrative, which the Abbasids wrote about 2 centuries after the supposed death of the Prophet Muhammad, the prophetic mission began in 610 AD. This means that Pope Urban II was speaking about 450 years after the supposed appearance of Islam. So why did the Pope, the head of the Western Christian Church, treat this event as a recent matter? Something in Urban's famous sermon warrants prolonged attention. As he mentioned, it reached his ears that a people from the land of the Persians, damned and far from God and faithless, invaded the Christian lands and expelled them by the power of the sword and fire. Focusing on the phrase, "it reached our ears," clearly indicates that the Pope was talking about a contemporary matter, about a painful present, not about a history 4.5 centuries old. However, the major historical catastrophe, according to the official rationale, is that Pope Urban II commits a grave historical error when he describes the invaders as a people from the land of the Persians. How could the Pope, who supposedly knew that Muslims appeared 4.5 centuries before his time in Mecca, in the middle of the Hijaz, in the Arab lands, fall into this geographical and cultural error and say that they were from the land of the Persians? But if we look at the Byzantine sources, we find a potential explanation that justifies the Pope's description. All Byzantine sources that speak of prominent Eastern kings, such as Harun al-Rashid, describe him as the king of Persia. These sources do not call him the Abbasid king or the Arab king or the Caliph of the Muslims, but insist on describing him as a Persian king. This brings us back to the records of Constantine VII, the emperor and historian, who describes Harun al-Rashid with this description. Therefore, when Urban II speaks of a recently appeared people from the Persians, damned, far from God, and who invaded Christian lands, he speaks according to the logic of the present and the information available to him at that time. This radical contradiction places us before two stark historical possibilities with no third option. The first possibility, that Pope Urban II lived in the 7th century AD and was somehow transported to the 11th century AD, a surreal and illogical possibility, especially since we are talking about the highest religious authority in the Christian world at the time, which could not fall into an error of this terrible magnitude. The second possibility, the more probable, that the movement we know today as the official Islamic call did not actually begin until the 11th century AD and was later backdated to the 7th century AD within what is known as the Phantom Time. The Pope we are discussing, the Pope of the 11th century AD, held the supreme authority and was the ultimate authority in the Christian world. He could not be mistaken in saying that this people from the Persians invaded Christian lands and expelled them by the power of the sword and fire. His statement, "It reached our ears," only means that the matter was indeed contemporary to him. So what do we conclude from these facts? We conclude that the Christian West did not pay attention to or know of Islam as a new religion hostile to Christianity until a late time. When was this late timing? It was when the Arab Muslim state became strong enough to declare itself as an opposing religious power. This shift occurred more clearly during the Abbasid era, especially during the reign of al-Mamun al-Khurasani, where the remaining symbols of Christianity in the Holy Lands began to be attacked in an attempt to destroy, obliterate, and end their existence.
This differs significantly from what the Umayyads did previously. The Umayyads were politically hostile to the Byzantine Empire regarding areas of influence and disputed territories. The disagreements in the beginning concerned the vision of Christ himself, as evident in the inscriptions of the Dome of the Rock, which described Christ as the servant of God and his messenger. These are documented and existing texts. We must know that Jerusalem, Urshalim, was and still is the axis of conflict. Specifically, the Dome of the Rock carries the oldest evidence of the emergence of this new heresy, which is documented proof and older than the evidence found in Mecca. This inscription has remained a silent witness to the passage of time. The Christian world continued to view what was happening in the East as merely Ismailite innovations and heresies. Christians remained complacent, despite the entry of early leaders like Omar ibn al-Khattab, Omar ibn Abdel Aziz, and Abdel Malik ibn Marwan into Jerusalem and their building and construction. The Christian West did not realize that this heresy had declared itself a complete religion, competing with Western Christianity and attempting to replace it, until the advent of the 11th century AD. That is, when Urban II delivered his sermon speaking of a recently appeared people from the Persians who invaded the holy Christian lands and destroyed its symbols. This delay indicates that the completion of Islam's emergence as a fully independent religion could only have occurred after hundreds of years following the independence of the Arab East. These early Arab states followed Jewish Christianity or Nazarenism, al-Nasraniyya, but they did not explicitly establish it as an independent religion hostile to Western Christianity until a late time, during the Abbasid Empire. Returning to the early Christian roots, we find that the division began when Christ declared that he did not come to abrogate the Torah, but to complete the law. Here the early Christians divided into two main factions. One, a group that understood this completion as development and modification. This group saw the necessity of upholding the gospel without the Torah, considering that the gospel summarized, collected, and confirmed what preceded it. Two, a group that understood this completion as confirmation, detailing, and continuity. This group saw the necessity of upholding both the Torah and the gospel together. In this complex context, many early Islam researchers believe that the rise of Islam was a natural outcome of a group known as the Nazarenes, al-Nasara. This group existed on the margins of Hellenistic and Byzantine Christianity, meaning outside the official and orthodox current.
Conversely, other researchers believe that what we call Islam was the true and legitimate child of Rabbinic Judaism, with all its contents of Talmud and Midrash. Scholars and researchers, such as Father Joseph Koji, who used the pseudonym Abu Musa al-Hariri, the author of the book Priest and Prophet, detailed the nature of the conflict among the early Christians. Father Joseph Koji believes that Islam and Nazarenism are essentially one religion. We can say that Islam was nothing more than the Arabic name for Nazarenism, al-Nasraniyya. This interpretation aligns with the true meaning of recurring phrases in the Quran, such as the religion of Abraham, the monotheist, Hanif. This religion is fundamentally based on the rejection of polytheism, shirk, and the declaration of God's absolute oneness, tawheed. This is the Arab Nazarenism that was prevalent in the region. The sources indicate that the Quranic text was initially a compilation, synthesis, and translation of Syriac and Nazarene liturgical texts. In other words, Islam was an Arabization of the Abrahamic religion. The goal of this Arabization was an attempt to seize the Abrahamic heritage from both the Jews and the Christians. The Nazarene group that produced this new religion viewed Jews as straying because they did not recognize the Messiah, Christ. Christians as straying as well, because they elevated in their religion or exaggerated in religion, gulu fil din, which is a crucial theological point that shows the doctrinal disagreement. This historical and theological conflict clarifies why the reaction of the Christian West in the 11th century was with such violence and clarity. The Western Church woke up to find itself facing an existential challenge, not just a political dispute over land, but a rival religion that arose and developed from internal heresies to become a global power, threatening the heart of the Christian faith in the Holy Land. Urban II's speech was a warning cry that the danger was no longer just a marginal innovation, but an organized force openly hostile to Christianity. Dear friends, history is not just a series of events, but a key to understanding our reality. Today, we have shown you how the timing of the Crusades and the shock expressed by Pope Urban II at the recent appearance of a people from the Persians does not align with the official historical narrative that dates the origins of this religion back 4 centuries earlier. This contradiction widely opens the door to a radical re-evaluation of the roots of the conflict in the Middle East and the development of Christianity and Nazarenism.
What we have concluded through the analysis of ancient texts and their comparison with the Christian response indicates that the awareness of the emergence of a completely opposing religion did not crystallize until the Abbasid Caliphate transformed into a religious power that declared hostility to Christianity, moving away from previous Umayyad political conflicts. We strongly invite you to share this deep research with us. If you found something in this historical journey that arouses your curiosity and prompts you to think, please do not withhold liking this video and subscribe to the channel to receive more daring historical discoveries. Most importantly, share your comments and conclusions with us. Do you really believe that Islamic history was backdated? And what is your opinion on Pope Urban II's description of the invaders as being from the Persians? Let us together create an enlightened discussion based on evidence and historical research. Thank you for your time and your dedication to searching for the truth.